male lions, on average, in the Greater Kruger National Park, become mature at the age of 4, 5, maybe 6. And that, depending on the coalition, obviously if they're a strong coalition, they mature earlier. But if they're one male, it can be a little bit older. And they are dropping all sorts of farts over here, which is fantastic. We're definitely on the wrong side of the wind. So they've worked out the average pride tenure, so that male lions will hold prides or territory within the Greater Kruger National Park, is on average 4 years. So if a male lion becomes dominant at the age of, let's say, 5, and he holds a pride or he holds territory for 4 years, that means by the time he's 9, he's done with his breeding, done with his pride tenure, and maybe even been killed. Obviously, that's just the average. Now, if a male lion comes into a pride and the females have got cubs and he doesn't kill them, that female will not be breeding for 2 years. 2 years, everybody. Obviously, it depends on how far along her cubs are, but 2 years is half of the average amount of time that male lions actually look after pride and territory. So that is why, through evolution and through sort of traits being passed on, some males kill cubs, because what it does do, it brings that female into estrus within 1 month. 1 month versus 2 years is an enormous amount of time. So male lions who do kill cubs, clearly, if you worked out the statistics, breed more than male lions that don't kill cubs. So if a male lion kills every cub he sees, every female he then impregnates, he's got more chance through his 4 years of having more babies than a male lion who ignores cubs altogether and only breeds with females when they come back into estrus. So that sort of trait of cub killing is passed down from father to son, apparently. So that is why it is more common in the population than not killing cubs. But it is not exclusive. It doesn't always happen. So I hope that adds a little bit of information to the insight of the dynamics of lions and why they do what they do. One of the reasons why they kill them as well is that they smell funny. They're not theirs, and they want to breed. But one of the reasons why females also synchronize their breeding and also have the ability to, if they are potentially pregnant, I've read that if they're pregnant and a coalition moves in, they have the ability to abort. So I don't know if that's still factually true. It's something I learned back in 2005 in my early days of study. But it means that the female would rather get rid of her cubs than allow them to be born and just eaten. So that's also why they probably go off and have cubs away from the pride before coming back. But the dynamics behind lions are pretty set, and obviously across the African continent, this very successful predator has been doing what they've been doing for a very long time. And no doubt many, many eons ago, there was probably a second predator very similar to a lion that got out-competed. And it's why when you look at the predator sort of dynamics in any ecosystem, you get your very top apex predators and then a very big step down to the next and the next and the next. You don't get two predators that are very, very similar. They eventually outcompete each other, filling a different niche space for themselves. Now, Robin, you want to know if a male lion will kill his own father to take over? And, you know, in areas where you don't have a huge shift or movement of male lions through, so like the Greater Kruger National Park in the Mara, you've got enormous dynamics and lions are moving all the time. And generally, for the most part, male lion at a certain age starts showing interest in females in the pride, and dad or even the females themselves chase him off. But because there's that 4-year average, by the time a male lion has sired offspring, so maybe he moves in and 2 years later, his son or his 3 sons are 2 years old. That's 2 years later. Now, 2 years on, he's maybe 4. Within that 2-year period, there's probably going to be a shift in the pride dynamics, and that dominant male is going to be chased off or killed, which means his sons are going to be chased off and killed. So they won't even get the opportunity to challenge dad. But in areas where you don't have the same movement of lions through, so there are lots of reserves in South Africa where the lion population is controlled, and you do often have the son becoming a coalition member with the father. Obviously, there will be a dominance between them, but I've seen it a number of times where you've actually got dad and son as the pride coalition. Obviously, from a genetic point of view, he's got blood on the arm there, Davy. Definitely had some food at some stage, or maybe he's got a wound. So obviously from a genetic point of view, having dad and son being the pride males means that son is mating with mum and sister, which means from a genetic point of view, things are going very, very south. So they want to avoid inbreeding. It's the reason why in the natural systems, male lions reach a certain age and then get forcibly moved. Like these evokers, they moved many, many miles south. They could have moved east or north, but by the time they settle, they've moved into a completely new genetic pool, bringing with them genetics from a different pride elsewhere. In a controlled environment where dad and son are breeding, you need to, every generation, remove that male lion so as to reintroduce genetics back into the population, because inbreeding leads to all sorts of weird and wonderful things in all sorts of species. Okay, well, we're going to stay here.